Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to JC Sports Replays. This is Joe. And I was asked a question. So there's been a lot of talk lately, and I'm still going to do a main video about as played versus not as played, basically. And there's a whole bunch of different gradients to that. But today on Facebook, I shared my basic tracking sheet that I use for all my replays when I'm doing them by hand. And this is it. So really all it is the teams listed by division in alphabetical order down the left-hand side in the margin, uh, abbreviated with the standard abbreviation that you would find on the schedules that you could download from Retrosheet. And then next to them, I have their record. So right now, Baltimore's 2-0, Boston's 0-2. This is my 1985 Stratomatic baseball replay. And then the rest of the page is just who is injured by team. So right now, Seattle has Carney out for one more game. Philadelphia has Juan Samuel out for two more games, and then St. Louis has Jack Clark currently injured for 5 games. All I do after I play a team game on my handy leaf score sheets is adjust the record and adjust the number of games left for any injuries. And if there's new injuries, I add them. Usually I limit to 4 or 5 per team max injuries, and I try to only have maybe 3 position players and 2 pitchers at any given time. Sometimes it depends on team makeup, not have enough starters. In that case, I'll note the injuries but delay them. So it would be like Carney in parentheses 1. So say 3 position players are already injured and Carney would be the 4th. He'll stay active until one of the other position players comes back, and then I'll assume his injury starts that day. So kind of like a non-in-game injury happened, right? So they wake up that day and he's a scratch, basically. Anytime I do take a player off the active roster, I immediately replace him from the minors. But to make this make a little bit more sense, I want to show you how I have my cards and my teams set up, right? On this very, very old, beaten-up table. So my next game in my 85 replay is the first game of 4-11, and it's between the Yankees and the Boston Red Sox. If you're curious, the Yankees currently are 2-0 and Boston's 0-2 to start the season. So the Yankees looking to sweep this 3-game series, I believe, and Boston trying to get ready. And on top, right away, you'll see that I have the next 2 starting pitchers on the top of the stack. Right, so the Yankees are going to be starting Ed Whitson, and Boston will be starting Al Nipper. Now, when I set up these teams at the start of the season, all I do is make sure I have the guys with the most usage on the active roster, with a couple of exceptions, but for the most part, that's what I do. So I look for 5 starters. In 1985, I look for 5 relievers, and then I fill the rest in with the either 8 or 9 player lineup. In this case, 9 players because it's American League, so you've got 8 positions plus the DH, and then the other in that case 19. So 6 slots are filled by backup position players, right? So that's my 25-man roster. The starters are not organized by who I think is the best starter, but by how many games they started. So Ed Whitson is the number 3 starter. He has 30 starts. That means there were 2 guys who started more than 30 games for the Yankees, and they've already pitched at this point since this is game 3. So I'll show you how this is broken down. So after Ed Whitson on my stack for the Yankees, you're going to have the lineup, right? And this is the standard lineup with injuries already replaced. And in this case, the Yankees don't have any injuries. And I actually used the suggested lineups off of the Strat roster sheet to set my beginning lineups. So, you've got Ricky Henderson, Ken Griffey, Don Mattingly, Dave Winfield, Don Baylor, Willie Randolph, Mike Pagliarulo, Butch Weiniger, and Bobby Meacham. So that's your starting 9 plus your starting pitchers. So when I'm setting up for the game, I can immediately pull those off the top, put them off to the side. Right underneath them, I have the relief pitchers. And now this is where my usage tracking starts to come into play, right? Any relievers that are fresh are face up just like this, right? So Bob Shirley, he's fresh. He hasn't been used in the last game. Long story short, he's fresh. Brian Fisher, he's fresh. Rich Bordy, he's fresh. Marty Bystrom, he's fresh. Then we get to Dave Righetti. He's upside down. That means he was used in the most recent game. And he was used for less than his POW +2. So in this case, Righetti's POW is a 2. And I don't really use closer ratings because I just decide who I want to be the closer. I usually stick to the guy with the most saves. But sometimes it varies. So Righetti's relief is a 2. In this case, he could pitch up to 3 2/3 innings, and he would be fatigued. So let's say he pitched 3 2/3 yesterday, which he didn't. I think he pitched 1 2/3. So he could pitch up to 3 2/3, and he would go in the stack like that, right? He'd go at the bottom of the relief pitchers face down. If he had pitched 4 or more for some reason, which is very rare, I try to keep them within their POW requirements, and this is how I help manage their innings pitch, he would be face down at the bottom of the stack. This means he can pitch if needed. I usually try to go through these guys first, but if we got into a 1 or 2 run game in the 9th and it had been a close battle and Righetti was available and he was the closer, I might grab him, right? But if otherwise the game situation doesn't dictate the need for the pitcher who's fatigued, I would stick with the guys who are face up or right side up, right? He's upside down. These guys are right side up. This indicates fatigued but available. This indicates fresh. Okay? If Righetti had pitched more than my requirement for fatigue, he would be face down and unavailable, meaning I could not use him no matter what. His arm is sore. He's out. And then, so just for example, this is going to be pretty easy to remember because Righetti was the only fatigued pitcher. Let's say I play Boston today. The Yanks play Boston. First we go through Shirley, right? So he comes fatigued. Let me get the rest of these guys out of here. So Righetti was already fatigued. Now I play Shirley. He comes fatigued. Now I play Fisher. He becomes fatigued, right? But we don't use Righetti. Say the Yanks lose this one. Righetti never comes into play, okay? At the end of the game, Righetti regresses 1 card flip. So since he wasn't used, he's fresh again. And I basically keep them in order of innings pitched so that sometimes I'll keep the closer on top. But for the most part, I keep them in order of innings pitched so that I'm always trying to use the appropriate guy in the right situation. Now, of course, I may not use the best guy if the team's trailing. I'm more likely to go a little deeper in the stack and find somebody with a worse performance if the game's already out of hand, right? So now, tomorrow we go and they play, let's say they play the Tigers after this game tomorrow, right? And let's say they blow out the Tigers and it's a complete game for whoever's pitching. I don't know who the next pitcher in line is, but for whoever's pitching, it's a complete game for the next Yankee starter. Brian Fisher and Bob Shirley both recover, and they go back in. So long story short, right side up is fresh, upside down is fatigued. Upside down is fatigued but available. Face down is fatigued and unavailable. And they progress back through those stages. So if at the end of this game, Righetti started the game fatigued but unavailable, but at the end of this game, we didn't use him, he goes back to fatigued but available. He doesn't go right back to fresh. It goes in stages. So there's 3 stages, right? And you're always progressing only 1 stage at a time. So if I want to get Righetti back to fresh, I have to leave him alone for 2 days, right? I'll also kind of eyeball some usage factors and stuff like that, but that's basically how I manage my bullpen. So Kevin Thomas had asked me how I track, when guys are available and stuff like that. I used to use the charts off of Baseball Sim Research from Ronbo's site, and there was like a tracking chart and how many innings they pitched and when they'd be available again, and if they pitch on this day, how fatigued are they, and that kind of thing. And I just don't want to deal with that. So this is my simple sort of way of managing the bullpen. Now, pretty much monthly, I'll usually go the first 2 to 3 months, depending on the season. For 85, I can probably safely go 3 full months, so I can pretty much go to the All-Star break without worrying too much about how much I'm using guys with this system. But at the All-Star break, I'll start to eyeball everybody. And if guys are over significantly in usage, I may pull them out for a little while. And bring in another player. I might even just deactivate them and run on a short bullpen to get other guys into line. I don't try to nail the usage, but I want it to be kind of close. I want to manage it my way. Sometimes I have very valid reasons for going, fuck it, I'm just going to do it this way, and this is the way it's going to go. So I'm not a strict usage guy when I play not as played. By the way, for those of you who, whole nother video I still have to do about as played versus not as played. But I do play some as played replays. When I'm playing payoff pitch, because they have all the players carded, I love to play as played. I have 2 of those replays going right now in conjunction with Digital Diamond, which makes as played really easy. But right now I'm into like a cards and dice, paper and pen only replay feel. I have been for a little over a month now, and I'm just digging doing it the old way. This is how I did 6 strat full season replays before I discovered any other games. All by this, I tracked all the stats by hand. I actually haven't tracked any stats for this yet. Haven't decided if I want to do that with a helper or not. But this is how I did it. And I got to tell you, the usage comes out pretty good managing your bullpen this way. Especially for older seasons when teams didn't use 25 pitchers in a year, right? The Yankees might have used 8 or 9 relievers this year. I think I have 7 or 8 of them carded, so I can get the usage pretty close just by eyeballing it and using this system. Right. So, but we're starting the game. The other thing I do, let's talk about position players, right? On my stack, the next thing is the backups. And these guys are in position order. That's not actually how I like them. And I forgot to make this adjustment before I made the video. I started adjusting the teams. I don't like to set everything up as I go through. I like to get to playing. So my way of starting replays, as I realize things I want to do, is to set each team up as I get to them. So I've started to make this adjustment. Instead of having them in position order with the catcher on top, I like to just have an eyeball with the at-bats. So the most at-bats to the front. So Hassey has 267, Pascal 146. Or maybe I do. Sample 139, Robertson 125. I actually do, never mind. Hassey just happened to be the most used bench player. Dale Barrow 109, and all the way at the bottom, Rex Holder 51. And when I am flipping through for a substitute in a game, I start at the top, and the first guy that I find that is an appropriate substitute, I'm going to go with. So if I need a defensive sub for second base in the middle of a game, right, it's not Hassey, it's not Pasqua, it's not Sample. So I'm all the way down here to Andre Robertson. I'm just grabbing Robertson, that's my defensive sub. Pinch hitter, I might look a little bit more at what they did, and I'll almost never, ever use the backup catcher because I do roll for injuries. So you need to keep the backup catcher available in all but the rarest situations, unless you want a guy playing catcher out of position if something goes wrong, right? So I might pull the backup catcher to hit if he's a really good hitter, and it's like bottom of the 9th. We need a base hit to win the game right here. In a walk-off situation, I might put the backup catcher into pinch hit. Otherwise, he's staying on the bench just in case the regular catcher gets injured, right? So how do I decide when somebody in the starting lineup needs rest? I use this. Even though I mostly play basic with some advanced rules, like I used advanced stealing and I use POW, okay? I use point of weakness. I use the solitaire starting lineup rest chart. So before each game, I roll 2 dice. Red die is for the away team, white die is for the home team. This tells me 1 and a 5. So the Yankees today may have to rest center field, third base, and their DH. So I will go through their lineup, and I will compare. Now, center field, Ricky Henderson, he's a 2. If they have more than 600 combined at-bats plus walks, they never have to rest. So Ricky Henderson, 547, plus 99, never has to rest. So I don't have to worry about center field today. Third base, it's going to be Pagliarulo. So Mike Pagliarulo, 380 plus 45 is 425 total. We look on our chart here. Pagliarulo is going to have to rest if I roll a 1 to 15 on the 20-sided die. So I'll roll my 20-sided die. It actually comes up an 18, so Pagliarulo doesn't have to rest today. And then the designated hitter today, Don Baylor, 477 plus 52 is 529. Go to the chart. It says Baylor has to rest if I roll a 1 to 6. That's a 9. So Baylor doesn't have to rest today. So today, the Yankees don't have to rest anybody. Right? But if they did have to rest somebody, I would just go grab, it's the same way, off the top of the stack. Right? If I needed a left fielder, it's going to be Pasqua. If I needed catcher, obviously it would be Hassie. If I had needed to substitute at third base, it would be Andre Robertson. And usually that's how I will do it. Some guys may be injured, and that'll shorten the bench. But if you do this, the air conditioning came on, so hopefully I'm talking loud enough. The way I manage this, again, I did 6 full season basic strat replays with these rules, using exactly this system. And I gotta tell you that for the vast majority of the players, they come out within about 5% of their usage without doing anything else. I would say 90% of the players come within 5% of usage, 95 within 10% of usage, and then there's a couple of outliers, right? There might be a guy who just happens to be the best pinch hitter who gets used a lot, and maybe he gets used more than he should have, right? But this manages usage really well. Like, Rex Hudler's a terrible hitter. I'm never going to use him unless I have to, right? But guys are going to get injured. At some point, his number's going to come up. The other thing, again, I'll do, like I said, I'll check the usage here around halfway through the season and eyeball guys. And if somebody's way ahead of usage, I might pull him, bench him, pull up a sub. Just be conscious of, like, making sure I get some of the other guys their at-bats. The other thing sometimes I'll do is in, like, July or August, I'll just have a month where I use the sub to make sure I bring everything back into line. Like, maybe Pagliarulo needs significant rest for the Yankees this season, right? He only had 425 total plate appearances, not including hit by pitch, because we don't know those in basic, which means he played about 2/3 of the season. So he played about 100 games, let's say. Who played the other 60 or so games at third? Well, must have been a backup. But maybe through the first 2 months, I barely rolled to have Pagliarulo rest. Just fluke of the dice. I'll be a little conscious of that, and I might pull him. But be careful, because chances are when you do play Pags, sooner or later his injuries number is going to come up, and it's going to bring everything back into line. Things tend to even out over a full season. Things tend to get really close. This is a really well-designed rest system if you're using Strat-O-Matic as carded. Okay, really well designed. If you trust it, it's going to take care of your usage. You're going to have to tweak very little. So I like to keep things as simple as possible, right? So that's how I manage my pitcher usage and my starting lineup usage. So hopefully this clears some things up for people who are like, what the F is this guy talking about? How can you not do as played? We'll do a whole as played versus not as played comparison. There's a bunch of pros to as played, but there's a lot more cons than you think. So stay tuned for that. Hopefully Kevin and I can find some time in the next week or two to have a real good discussion about that in a live chat. But for now, this is Joe. That's how I generally play and set up my Strat-O-Matic games and manage my usage for my pitchers, my bullpen, and my relievers. All right? So if you have any questions, drop them in the comments. I know I didn't touch on starting pitching. It's a little bit of a deeper conversation. It's not hard, I just don't want to make this video too long. So maybe we'll do another video sometime this week on how I use my starting pitchers and determine when they get, avoid overusing them, basically. There's a pretty cool trick to make sure that guys who had extra starts, like a guy who starts every 5 days in a 162-game season and is a number one starter, he's going to have 33 starts. So what do you got to do with the guys who have 35, 37, 38? There's a pretty easy way to get them in line, and I'll go over that in another video. But anyway, my name is Joe. Again, this is JC Sports Replays. If you enjoyed the video, you like the content, there's more to come. Trying to get back and be a little more active on YouTube, so might even do a couple of games now that I got the camera mount set back up. So, all right, that's all for now. I'm going to go play this game. I hope you guys have a great 4th of July weekend, a nice quiet Sunday. We have some threatening thunderstorms. We've been indoors all damn weekend. But we're making the best of it, so hope you are too. And I'll see you next time. See ya.